Good morning, everyone.
Good
What's going
morning.
on? We're here live with some random branding guy that I picked up on LinkedIn. Bill, great for you to be here today, and I am so excited for our conversation. Your book, how long ago did this come out?
Came out 7/11, July 11th. So
July
middle of the
11th. I
year.
don't
Yeah.
Okay. Well, your content around branding is stellar. Your
Thank you.
voice is incredible. So, for those of you tuning in, you know that I find the most awesome people to interact with on LinkedIn, and Bill is one of them. Focus Labs helps people rebrand. And diving into your book, I have some questions, of course, but I want to compliment the structure of the book. I really felt like you were walking me through your process, and it felt like I could pick up one of the parts. It's divided into 4 parts with
Yeah.
3 chapters each part, action steps. I got to know, how did you come up with the structure?
Yeah, I'm happy you said some of the words you just said, which is you found the book, and I'm kind of reading between the lines.
Mhm.
Very practical, easy to read and follow the structure. That was exactly what I was going after.
Nice.
The brand topic can be very convoluted, confusing, very big, very wide. And I wanted to make something that was easy to understand, but still valuable. Like I didn't want to write the branding 101 book, if you will, for the people
Yeah.
that maybe are already at that level, but I wanted it to feel that way regardless.
Mhm.
So that really did dictate the structure, right? I wanted to take people through. Okay, well, let's first cover our bases in the first couple chapters. Like, what the hell is branding? Let's at least come back to zero on that, even if we all think we know. Let's talk about the true impact of branding, which is often misunderstood. How can you measure the effect of brand? It is hard, but it's doable. And then I start to roll into, okay, if you think you need to invest in brand, how do you find the right partner? What's the most important part in finding that relationship before you start
Mhm.
rebranding or branding in general? And then the rest of the book goes into, okay, how does it go? And it's very linear, like you said, right? It's like
Yeah.
you start here and then you go here and then you go here and then you go here. And it is our exact process. It's literally what we do.
Well, I liked it. One, I have a science background. Before I
Oh,
became a
interesting.
coach, I was a scientist. And you know, that comes with linear thinking. But
Hmm.
also, I'm very visual, and so the book being laid out in this way helped me see that it was a process right from the very
Hmm.
beginning, that it wasn't just going to be airy fairy concepts. It was going to
Exactly.
be tangible, which I love that too. Now, in part 1, page 70 to be exact, and of
Oh
course,
boy. Oh God. Let
we're
me
going to
get my
share.
book out.
Okay. We're going to share links to Bill's company and how to get in touch with him and how to buy the book in the comments. But page 70, questions to ask the agency you're thinking of hiring.
Yes.
I love the boldness of this because you're basically saying, come on, ask me before you hire me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I love that so much because I think personally, people hire agencies, coaches, consultants before ever really asking those important questions. And I love that you were brave enough to put them in the book, and it felt, gosh, it upped the trust factor, at least for me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So why is that important? Well, for the obvious reasons that the people are thinking, but let me be
Mhm.
clear that this is a two-way relationship. It's almost a dual interview without putting kind of
Mhm.
that interview word with the tension and the pressure that that
Mhm.
creates. But like, we want to know that we're about to essentially marry the right person for 3 to 6 to 12 months. Some of these projects go right. So we would want them, I got distracted by the comment.
Yeah, me
We
too.
would want them to ask the tough questions right out of the
Mhm.
gate, right? And we want to ask the tough questions too. We want to make sure that our process works for you. We're not just going to sit back and say, well, we're fighting for this at all costs and we don't care if it actually works for them or works for us. Work is work, get the work. It's like, no, 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 no. We actually want to slow the whole thing down and say, what do you need? Can we fulfill that? Can we fulfill it in the way that you want it fulfilled beyond timeline and these other
Mhm.
types of things? And that does come down to that people factor. One of my favorite questions, if it's not in the sales process, which I'm not always in, but it is in the kickoff meetings, I'm always very interested to know from the highest stakeholder in the meeting. Sometimes it is the founder CEO, sometimes it's head of marketing, sometimes it's actually just head of design. What their greatest fear is. Like, what are you most scared of when you enter this project? You want to get those things out on the table. There's no sense in not asking them,
Yeah.
right? Get them out and away from the project and solved if you can early so that you can get in and focus on the work. And there's not kind of like underlying things that haven't been said. So that's why it's important to do those. And even in the sales process.
Beautiful. And you said something when you first started out that made me think of a joke. And since I love to make people laugh, I'm going to ask now, where were you with those questions when I got married the first time at 22?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. What year was that?
1989.
Oh, I was probably deep into Mario 2 on my
Nice.
Nintendo. Yeah.
Nice.
I
All
didn't
right.
know those
Just
things yet.
just throwing it out there that mutual interviews are really
Yes.
important. And it's something that's rare in today's, agency consulting space. So
Mhm.
I just think it's incredible to that you put it out there, that how important that is.
You
Um,
used the right word, which was just to jump in, which was
mhm,
like building the trust and the confidence.
yeah,
When you keep it real with somebody and you're not just trying to sell them and you're not avoiding the hard questions, but you are just you
yeah,
because you are genuinely trying to create the best relationship and
yeah,
create the best output. People align to that, right? That's refreshing. There are many
yes,
times that we hear throughout the sales process and even during a project, wow, I'm so happy you asked that hard question, or you're asking such better questions than we got asked with another agency that they were potentially thinking about working with in the sales
mhm,
process, right? Because we're willing to just be open and keep it real. There's no reason to fake it.
yeah,
Some of that does come with time. Let's be real, right? Like in the
it does.
early days, you're just kind of like, oh God, I hope I can get this.
Mhm.
So there's a different feel there. But once you relax and you build confidence, you're able to show up in a different way, which is really effective.
Yeah, it really I I think the lesson there is getting to that place of confidence in what you're selling. I call it healthcare selling, because that's the
Mm,
space I came from. But it's that internal belief that what you have and what you offer and what it can do for the person sitting in front of you, and if they don't feel the same way, you know, you can't sell somebody something if
no.
they don't feel it too. So I love that distinction on your
And there's no
part.
judgment there.
Right,
Right? Like, it's like,
right.
okay, if you actually don't think it's valuable, then like I don't want you to get it. And I'm not even gonna judge you after the fact and say, oh, you're dumb, you don't get it. It's like, okay, you're not there yet. Maybe it is not valuable to
Mhm.
you. You can't think like, and I can't personally think that, although I truly believe that brand is so important to every business, that's the most important thing in the world, and everyone's stupid if they don't get it. Right. That's a
Right.
very silly
Yeah,
stance to take. So I
yeah.
write a book and I try to help people understand. And then we will meet people when they're at the right point of their journey and ready to take that step.
I love it. I love it. All right. Let's switch to deliverables because apparently you're a rock star at deliverables was my takeaway. That
Okay, that's a good
it's
takeaway.
that it's one of your favorite things about what you do is delivering quality stuff,
That's
obviously,
right. Yeah.
right? It's obvious you love them. And I wrote that you provide a ton of them compared to other
Oh,
branding things that I've come across.
Yeah, let's talk
And
about that. And
yeah.
or you could get to your specific question, but I do have some thoughts.
Well, I wanted to know, what are your favorites? What are your favorite
Oh, interesting.
deliverables? And I would say, what's the experience? What is that like when you deliver something that you're passionate about and the client reacts in a positive way and they're like, wow, this is that's what I got. I got the emotional side of the deliverables for you. So let's tap into that a little bit.
Emotional is right on both sides of that roller coaster ride. It is
Yeah.
very emotional, that journey. There's a lot of
Yeah.
anticipation, expectation, sometimes disappointment, right?
Hmm.
Because these things have to build week after week on top of each other. So to be clear here, when we're talking about deliverables, we're talking about the work that we ship. And for us, that's every week. We ship the actual work out. And now that comes in different stages of the project. You've got
Hmm.
strategy deliverables early on in the process, which will then bleed into design, visual deliverables, then verbal messaging deliverables. All these things we send every single week. So to your point, I do also believe we send more than normal. That's just a different process take, meaning we
Hmm.
ship every single week. We want to have that very iterative kind of
Mm.
step by step, not big gaps in between. I don't know because I've not stepped away from this and built another business for 14 years with a different process, if that is better or worse. I just know that that works for us and it really works for our clients because it keeps them tapped in. What we
Yeah.
don't want to do is go dark for, say, 3 months, coming up with the best strategy ever and really making potentially the best visuals ever, only to come up and be completely misaligned with what the client is really wanting.
Yeah.
So that's why we choose not to do that. Now, when you ask me what are my favorite, I'm going to be very biased here, but I have a lot of love for my team, so I'm going to try to cover all my bases.
Okay.
I'm a past designer, right? So I started this business as a straight up designer who went to art school and learned design. So that's very much my background. It's in my DNA. So I tend to love design deliverables,
Mm.
right? I'm very visual. When I think about design deliverables, I think about round one. That's the first big visual round that we send out. And in our current process, that doesn't go out until like week 8 of the project ish. We 6 to 8 in there somewhere. That's when the
Okay.
client gets their first, God, let's call it a 60-page PDF with a video walkthrough of everything that has built up to that moment and the 3 options
Mm.
that they're going to pick from. I love that moment. That is a highly stressful moment for both parties. Um, that's a very impactful deliverable, just as much as the strategy deliverable, which is the first big strategic deliverable, which is all the dissemination of everything that we've looked at and learned about their company and their competitors and what would differentiate them, et cetera. That's a really impactful deliverable too. Um, if I was a strategist, I would probably say that's my favorite. Yay, strategist. I'm very
Yeah.
sensitive to the fact, as you can see, that I'm a damn designer, and brand shouldn't just be about design. Let's be clear about that too.
Yeah.
Uh, Finally, I would say, going long on the question, the final deliverable, right? The actual style guide, handing that over, which is also meaty. Yes, we're getting comments, 60 pages. Some of these
Yeah.
deliverables are massive. And we have to turn around in a week, right? But that's where the iterative process comes in. It's not all brand new every single week.
Mhm.
That final deliverable is a very special moment because the stress is largely removed at that point. All the big highs and lows of the roller coaster have now leveled out, and people are really ready to get their final package and just start to use it. And I do interviews like this with clients.
Mhm.
And in those interviews, I ask them what was the most basically impactful moment of the project for you, most enjoyable. And they often say it was receiving those assets and then sharing it with the team.
Mm.
Then they get to bring that new thing to the team and the team gets excited. So there's a really long answer for you. There's a lot that
I
happens
I
in a project.
I love it, and my favorite brandographer is here in the
Mm,
comments, Melissa Henry, which I'm happy to introduce you. You guys will have an
please.
amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Um, brand isn't just about design. I learned that from Melissa. Thank you, Melissa, for being here. Um, so many people are only focused on that visual part of their brand, and I mean, the verbal, the messaging piece is so important.
Yes.
Um, all right, so now I'd love to talk a little bit about the strategy section of the book. I'm a strategist at heart, and I love visuals. And I want to just say that strategy is not market research.
Yes. There we go.
Good, good,
There we go.
good stuff. And I wrote down, you don't just do what everyone else is doing in a market or vertical by copying what someone else is doing. And face it, that's what so many brands do when they're first starting, because they feel shy or they feel imposter syndrome or whatever. So what stood out to me in this whole section was, are you a fan of category design, my friend?
Oh, interesting. Yes. Yeah, the category design topic is really interesting for me personally because I find this question of myself, which is like, where does category design fit into
Mhm.
branding in
Yeah,
general, right?
yeah.
And I even went to an awesome dinner with some pretty high profile category design leaders, if you will, and that is their offering, right? Category designers, and I'm a branding agency. Where
Mhm.
do we fit? Are we aligned on certain subjects? Are we actually at odds on certain subjects? I find that really interesting. Um, but all in all, yeah, I mean, you want to carve out your space, right? There needs to be some
Yeah.
version of a blue ocean for you to truly succeed, or else you're just kind of caught up in the mess of everybody else. And for
Yeah.
every company that's different, right? Like we need to be careful to not insinuate that every company can carve out a bold new category. That's going to be really hard for some
Mhm.
because the opportunity is just not there, and very easy for others, which are literally
Yes.
brand new technologies like an Uber or something, right? Like
Yes.
they create the category. Um, so yeah, I do find it to be a very interesting topic, and I have
Yeah.
Play Bigger. Play Bigger's up on the shelf. I'm a fan of the book and the
Nice.
thinking that is all in that ecosystem of category design.
Well, they have a great community that I happen to be an ambassador of. So, happy to
There you
invite you.
go.
So since being different is so necessary, it can look like a different brand, but in reality, like you said, I totally agree. Everybody can't be their own category of one,
Hmm.
but your messaging can be unique. Your vision for where the company is going to go, who it's going to serve, can be that unique
Correct.
combination. Say a
Correct.
little bit about how you help somebody tap into that uniqueness.
So you kind of hinted on it, which is every company will find that uniqueness in a different way.
Mm,
Some will straight up be in a category of one. They are already unique. There's nothing else to really do to make that more true. Some companies that is harder. They can't carve out a straight up category, but they do need to stand out. So let's just go visual because it's low hanging fruit.
mhm.
Should at least be considered. Should we not look like them? Okay, maybe we're second or third in the category. We don't own it, but we need some visual cue and indicators that we are different. That can be visual, yes. That can very much be verbal. It could be the story and how you show up. The personality of the brand can be very
Mm,
different.
yeah,
Whether the visuals truly embrace that or not, we would consider that a disconnect. But the personality could be very different. So there's a lot of ways to create differentiation. I guess my point here is like, as long as people are covering at least a couple of the bases, then they're moving in the right direction. As opposed to, it's interesting. I was doing another one of those interviews with a past client, and she had expressed that before she met us, her mindset was, oh, those are the people that are succeeding. I should try to look like them because they've obviously figured out the model. I should look
mm,
like them, sound like them, etc.
mm,
And I'm so in my own damn bubble. I couldn't believe she said that. I'm like, wait, no, no, you really thought that before you like reached out to us? And she's like, yes. And then in the sales call, when I was talking to
uh-huh,
one of your team members, they indicated like, no, that's actually not how you should be thinking. And she's like, that was a light bulb. And I'm like, oh shit.
yeah,
Sometimes I get so deep in it, right? I have to come
yeah,
out and
same,
realize that not everybody understands that. So yes to differentiation. Just figure out how you're different and keep beating that drum.
Yes. Love it.
Words, colors, etc.
Love it. So when it comes to a company revealing their rebrand, what do you recommend? Do you recommend dripping it out, or do you recommend like a big, curtain blowing party, big reveal style?
So I used to die on this hill, and I think I've walked back a little bit. But let
Okay.
me tell you, like, what is most important.
Okay.
What is most important is that there are two different events. Now, whether we want to call them dripping or like smash bang or reveals, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
The two different events need to be, there has to be an internal rollout. Brand is as much of an internal event, a new alignment, a new story, a new everything that you're bringing to the world. You better get your team on the ship before the ship goes out to the world, right? Even if it's just purely out of a respect thing. You certainly want to do it for more than respect. You want everybody to know this is where we're going. This is why it matters. That impact internally has a huge positive effect within the organization, right? We all
Oh,
know what we're doing now. Oh, finally, we've addressed the fact that we used to say we were 7 different things. And now through this rebrand, we know we are one thing. And this is what our vision for the next 5 years.
mhm.
That's serious momentum for the organization. So you do that first. Get your team aligned first. Now, that can't really be a drip. That needs to be an event. It doesn't need to be a humongous event. Preferably, it would be cared for, though. You want to make it an event. Let's get excited about this thing. Let's get a bit of a hoorah and a rally and a
Yeah.
galvanizing moment for the team.
Yeah.
Then take it external. Now, this is where we would typically and historically say, don't just drip it out, because that's more risky. It's risky for it to feel inconsistent, not cared for, not intentional. Having said that, there have been people we've worked with that have done that really well. So I'm a little bit cautious to die on the hill to say, you
Okay.
can't do that or you'll fail, because
Okay.
they have proven me wrong, and good for them. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, though, you want to make that an event too, right? At least to have one singular event, even if there's been some dripping. So what does dripping look like? It doesn't look like update your homepage and don't update any other page. Dripping looks like maybe you've started to update some of the typography in the product. We work with a lot of B2B SaaS tech, right? So they could be updating things within the product that the customer base might not immediately know, like, oh, something's changing here. It's not like maybe the whole system and colors and language didn't change, but they're starting to update some things purely from a time-intensive perspective. It's really hard to flip a switch in one day and have everything just go to the new thing. I can recognize that.
I can recognize that.
But even if you're still building in the background and getting ready, maybe there's still a flip switch that is the bigger update across all of the things at that point, and you've done a lot of the work to get yourself ready for that in public.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you got to make it special. I think people do, but I cringe about the idea that there could be a founder that doesn't really care about brand, but the team convinced him or her that brand is important. They went through the rebrand, and when it was released, that founder didn't take the opportunity to do their soapbox preach.
Yeah.
That's such an important aspect. Like, if the founder is not going to be behind it, oh man, you're really trying to get everybody like dug into it. And I don't think you'll get it if you don't do that. Big or small, an all hands meeting with your team. Or we've had clients fly everybody out to, Cabo and rent an entire hotel and literally like brand the hell out of the entire hotel and have the team have a multi-day moment. We work with clients at different scales, though. That's not realistic for everybody.
That sounds very fun, though.
If you've got the budget for that,
it sounds very fun. So 2 things I want to just really accentuate is that you're talking that brands can actually improve company culture.
Hey,
Which is
not only can it, that's probably one of the most important parts of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if most understand
I
that
agree. I agree.
your team being on the same page, um, and having the same language
Yep.
and visual representation of where they work in their mind is so beneficial from the advocate standpoint
Yep.
of your people going out into the world and being advocates for your brand. So important. And I love that you made that distinction. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I think that's worth cracking open for 30 seconds.
Sure.
Why do people work at Patagonia? Why do people work at Tesla?
Mhm.
Even with a polarizing founder,
Yeah.
because they believe in the cause of what that company is doing and what it
Yes.
stands for, right? Those things actually have nothing to do with the visuals. But if you want that company to succeed, the visuals sure better be in line. Patagonia is not going to come out with things that feel anti-earth, right?
Right.
Everything's going to be in line with the purpose and the story. So if you want to talk about the culture of an aligned brand on the culture, people will join the company because the company knows what it stands for and what it's doing.
Yes.
And yes, Patagonia is an easy example because it is so big and so clear what they're trying to affect. And like, can B2B SaaS tech do the same? I would argue it can. It probably have to work a little bit harder to carve out exactly what that story is. But
Mhm.
once people know it, they will join that. People join Focus Lab because they want to work on branding. If we were an all service agency and we did all types of things, they would join maybe because they love the creative that's coming out, but they wouldn't be coming specifically because they want to be a brand person. So
Yeah.
that helps us, right? That brand and that positioning now actually affects how we can hire and how we're positioned from that standpoint.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well said and well pulled together. Um, I
I've had
just
14 years.
yeah, lots of practice. Lots of practice. Well, I we have to wrap up, but I wanna just say thank you for, 1, being open to a random stranger in the comments, on LinkedIn reaching out to you and finding out that we only live about an hour and a half apart from each other. So
Small world.
that means that I might get to visit
Yes.
Focus Labs
Yeah.
someday in the future, which is really exciting.
For
Um,
what it's worth, fully remote though, so you might get to visit me.
that's
No
fine.
HQ though, no HQ. I'll represent the company. I can do
That's
that.
well, your HQ is very well decorated for the holidays, and
I got my
you know
trees up. Oh, this
there's
side.
there's a
This side.
skateboard in the background, which I couldn't love anymore, and I'm just so thrilled that you agreed to come on
Oh,
my show, totally blind to, this conversation, and I think there's a lot of people that are gonna really resonate with this conversation beyond who's here today and said, "Wow, this is amazing." So I appreciate you. Where can my listeners get in touch with you?
yeah. So the easiest place to find me is LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most noisy and sharing stuff, and I try to do that in a valuable way, like we did here. So find me on LinkedIn, Bill S. Kenny. That is also true for all my social handles, which would be like LinkedIn, Twitter. But again, I'm most active on LinkedIn, so find me there. But if you want to check out our work, go to focuslab.agency. Fun fact, we also spun up a second agency this year, which serves more of a seed stage and startup type of client, and that
Mhm.
is Odie Brand agency. And the last URL I'll plug is for the book, conqueryourrebrand.com. It'll give you some insight into what the book's about. Check it out on Amazon. Before we jump, though, I got to give a shout out to Priscilla. I see her in the comments.
Yeah,
Priscilla is an A plus Focus Lab alum. She was a
nice.
wonderful team member on our team, and I see her here. Hey, Priscilla, I see you.
Thanks for joining in, Priscilla.
Yes.
Uh, Bill, appreciate you, and the fact that you go by Bill S. Kenny, dare I say, people call me STK. Maybe I'll start calling you BSK.
You could call me that. Fun fact: my dad's initials are STK. And I guess the note on why the hell I put S in there is so I could
Mhm.
get every handle. So I could get every social handle. I couldn't
Yes,
get just straight Bill Kenny on my social handle. So I stuck the S in there and voila,
same,
magic.
same. Same. I was Suzanne Taylor was my maiden name, and then when I got married, Suzanne King, and there was just too many Suzanne Kings. I'm like, "How am I gonna make this?" I think there was 27 in the tri-state area. So I'm like, "Oh, I gotta fix this for the URL and the handles." Right, so
Yeah.
all right, well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Bill. I appreciate you and look forward to more conversations.
Me too. Me too. Thanks for